This week I wanted to take a look at the Ryzen 7 5800 X3D and compare it to the Ryzen 9 7945H X3D. So right out the gate, this is a 8-core 16-thread part, runs at a TDP of 105 watts, and it is a desktop part. So it's part of the AM4 platform, and it is upgradable, but in terms of gaming performance, this was the best CPU for gaming performance on the AM4 platform. The 7945H X3D, this was a mobile CPU, so this was in laptops. And what MINISFORUM did is they soldered the laptop CPU to an ITX motherboard and then increased the TDP to 100 watts. So we're dealing with 100 watts versus 105 watts on the 5800 X3D. So to make things a little bit more fair, I used Process Lasso. So if you saw my video last week, I show how to set up Process Lasso and disable all of the frequency cores on a 16-core CPU, and then just leave the V-cache cores enabled. So the way that I've set up this for comparing the 5800 X3D and the 7945H X3D is they will both have 8 cores, 16 threads, and they will all have V-cache cores. So it's pretty much as fair a comparison between these two parts as you can get. RAM frequencies that are supported on the MINISFORUM motherboard, on their site it says it's up to 5200 megatransfers, but there was a comment in my last video that says they will support up to 5600. So I wasn't aware of this, so I bought the RAM that was in spec. The RAM that I bought is the G.SKILL 32 gigabytes 5200 CL38. This was $95, but if what the comment said is true and it will run 5600, I would recommend getting this G.SKILL set. So this is 5600 CL40, and it is also $95. So this is the cheapest set of 32 gigabyte RAM that runs at this speed with that cast latency. And I think it's a no-brainer. You know, you're getting 400 extra megahertz and only slightly worse latency on the timings. For the 5800 X3D, it is going to be on the Asus TUF Gaming X570 plus Wi-Fi, and the RAM that I used is G.SKILL 3600 CL16. So this is Samsung BDI memory and is, you know, some of the best memory you could get for the AM4 platform. And I used 2 sets. I know sometimes you have some issues when you do 2 sets of RAM together, because this set originally only comes with 2 sticks of 8 gigs, but I'm running 4 sticks at 8 gigs because I have 2 sets of it, and I've had it running for years. I haven't had any issues with it, but your mileage may vary. So moving on from this, we're going to get into the benchmarks. First off, we have Call of Duty Warzone. I got the 5800 X3D up top, the 7945H X3D with Process Lasso is in the middle, and the bottom is the 7945H X3D just in its stock condition. Pretty impressive. With Process Lasso, we end up getting over 10% better in average FPS than the 5800 X3D. Next up is Lords of the Fallen, and this one is pretty comparable between the 5800 X3D and the 7945H X3D with Process Lasso. Both of these are getting about the same performance and much better showing than without Process Lasso. So this is one of those games where it's definitely a benefit to download Process Lasso and get it working. Hogwarts Legacy definitely seems to be a game that benefits from 16 cores and 32 threads, because the stock 7945H X3D wins by a lot in this one, especially in the 0.1% loads. It's 25% better than both of the others. Overall, just kind of goes to show that depending on the games, you may or may not want Process Lasso, and you can set it up accordingly. Finally, Cyberpunk 2077 is probably the best win for the 5800 X3D. It's over 9% better in the 0.1% lows, over 4% better in the 1% lows, and over 6% better in the average FPS. Not too bad for a CPU that's, you know, getting up there in age now. But let's get into the benchmark summary and see how these all compare. So right off the bat, you can see that the 5800 X3D and the 7945H X3D with process Lasso are pretty comparable. Overall, I'm very impressed that CPU that was meant for like mobile, like laptops and stuff like that, is able to match 5800 X3D. It was like the king CPU when it came out. So the fact that the original X3D chip is matched by the 7945H X3D in MINISFORUM's BD790i is pretty impressive to me. When it comes to the process Lasso, it's kind of disappointing that Windows Scheduler doesn't work well enough to make process Lasso kind of not necessary. I would say that it's definitely worth checking out process Lasso if you have a dual CCD Vcache CPU, just to make sure that you're not losing performance, because there are some games where you're definitely just not getting the full performance for gaming. When it comes to a purely gaming focused build, I still don't think it makes that much sense. I think that you're way better off just getting something like the Ryzen 5 9600X with Peerless Assassin 120, the ASRock A620i ITX board, and then the G.SKILL DDR5 6000 CL30. This is just going to be a great build. You're going to have great upgradability. You're not dealing with a soldered CPU. You're going to be able to run whatever games you want, and it only costs $460 before tax. And compared to the MINISFORUM on their website, it's more money, but on Amazon you can get it for $600, and then you add in the cost of the RAM, assuming you get the 5600, it would be $95. So you're looking at $695 versus $460. So essentially paying 50% more money. And if you're going to do that, you just need to have a use case for the 16 cores and 32 threads that are in the MINISFORUM BD790i. Otherwise, just makes more sense to get something that's more mainstream on the AM5 platform. And you'll be able to upgrade to something like a 7800 X3D or a 9800 X3D, whatever comes after those. Next week, I will be comparing the two different memory sticks that I have. So I have this set of G.SKILL 5200 CL38. This is the set that I did all of my testing with. But I ended up picking up this set of 4800 CL34. So I bought this set for a laptop upgrade that I'm going to have in a future video. And I just want to see if lower frequency but tighter timings versus higher frequency with looser timings does anything for the MINISFORUM BD790i. And essentially I'm going to just put them through the same benchmarks that you just saw with the 5800 X3D and see how they compare to each other. But after that, I'm going to move over to a laptop that I got off of Craigslist, and I'm going to try to do some upgrades, see if it was worth it or not, and I look forward to seeing you guys in that one. That'll do it for this one, and I'll see you next week.